Here we are, another Scrap Life podcast. I haven't done a generational courage one for a little bit. They're probably my favorite ones to do, but there's less opportunity to do them because these ones are like the ones I really probably enjoy doing in person. So I'm here with Cole and Coleman. I finally made my way to South Carolina. I feel like I've been to most states, but this one is, I can finally now check the box. So
Right.
Down at UCC, United Catalysts, and thanks for taking the time, fellas.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us
Yeah.
on. We appreciate it.
I always love getting in a room with guys that remind me of me, which is why I like this atmosphere that you guys have going on, and remind me of me just in the fact that you guys have the older generation. No offense, Becky, Tim, I still love you, but you guys have a good young generation of people that are pushing the envelope and that are trying to take the converter side to the next level, right? And that's kind of how we built our business. Just young guys that wanted to grow, that wanted to do something. So I have a real appreciation for what you got going on here, and so thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
So how does Cole and Colson meet? How do you guys know each other?
Oh, man.
You guys,
Yeah.
damn, you have the same name.
Yeah, so I'll kind of say, Cole I met Cole in 2019 in Clemson. He was dating a girl, and I was dating a girl, and they were best friends. And I always tell people, I got the better end of the breakup because I got Cole. So, we maintained
We're not dating those girls anymore.
Yeah, no, we're not. No, but we maintained our friendship over the years. And surely when I first met him, I didn't like him.
It's true.
To be honest with you, I first met him, I was like, oh man, I don't like this guy. And then as I got to know him more, because I was forced to hang out with him,
Right.
I really started to like Cole. And now he's considered more like my brother than anything else. So
Sure.
Is your story the same version? Did you not like him either? Or
Yeah.
what?
I mean, it's pretty close. It's
you knew
pretty
me
close.
as the cop.
Yeah. I was like, this dude's a narc,
Nobody likes cops. Well, at least you got him to the dark side.
Right?
Yeah.
We brought him
That's
in.
what my family says. They're like, oh man, you went from being a cop to working in converters.
To buy converters.
You're shunned.
It's true.
How did
It's
you
true.
go from up here to scratching down at the bottom of the totem
Yeah.
pole with the scrap guys? You
Yeah.
know?
Took a
So
lot of convincing.
yeah, I bet it did.
We're not like those guys, I promise.
So so are the girls still friends now, or are they not friends anymore?
I wouldn't know, would you?
I don't really know. We moved on to better things.
Yeah,
man.
we're it's
Well,
it's
neither of
ancient
you are
history.
married, at least yet, right?
That's true.
So
That's
you guys
true.
are still single at that. What? How old are you?
26.
I'm 26. I'll be 27 here in about 2 weeks.
Dude, you're old.
I know.
Nice. So I mean, did you guys go to college together? Different colleges.
We weren't in college actually. We were just up there on the weekends hanging out.
Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of weird how that happened.
Because the
but,
girls were they lived together.
Yeah, they all went to school together, whatever, sororities.
We were make-believe Clemson students.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you went. So tell me your background.
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I went and worked for SLED, which is South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. And while I was working there, I was going to college online, so I went to Liberty University until I graduated, and then I became an agent. And then I just found out that law enforcement wasn't really for me at the time, and I pivoted and went into sales, working at Kiowa for a little while, and then eventually I just wanted to get out of Charleston, and that's when I hit Cole up. And, it's been here since.
And he's also being modest. He was the youngest SWAT team leader in the state or something and sniper team, all this crazy stuff. So he was catching fugitives and all that stuff, and I thought it was cool. But once you
every converter company needs someone that can carry a gun legally.
We've
and that knows their way around what criminals look like and who to stay away from, right? So it's probably a pretty welcome addition.
Yeah, we not advertising anything, all I can say is that we're not the place to try to rob for sure.
Yeah.
Just we didn't hire based off that, but we've definitely got some people.
It's like a +1,
right?
Like
yeah.
you got people that know how that deal goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your background, you're the second generation.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we hired up my grandfather, but yeah, there's 3 generations in the building.
3 generations
and I'm the
in
second.
the building, 2
Mm-hmm.
generations that have grown up in the converter side as far as the processing, purchasing.
Yeah, he grew up sucking on the converter is what I tell people.
Yeah, teething on them. I'm immune to tetanus from that.
So, did you always know? Did you always know what you were gonna do?
No, not at all. I mean, most of my life, I barely even understood what my parents did. It's kind of confusing with like precious metals and hedging and trading, but also, whenever I go to work with you, I'm at a scrapyard, right? It's like, so what's going on? I wanted to be a pastor for a long time, so I was in seminary school for 2 years, and then I was just kind of like, I can always do this later.
Yeah.
My parents have a good business back home, and that working gene just kind of kicked on one day. I came home and started working. So
we were talking about this at lunch, right? Like that working gene comes with like, I want to buy something.
Yeah,
like,
I want to own
drive,
things. I want to pay for gas.
Yeah.
Get a house someday, maybe. That
exactly.
kind of stuff. So,
I mean, I always said like, you have what? How many siblings do you have?
2 older sisters.
2 older sisters. Mm-hmm. Are either of them in the business?
My oldest sister's working part-time for us right now. She's doing like remote HR, but not really. No,
Okay.
they have no interest in converters at all.
I have a sister, and she tries to stay as far away from
right.
it as she can. So
Yep.
I know that.
Is she the smart one for that? Or?
Yeah, my sisters are way smarter.
My sister's
than me,
way smarter
for sure.
than me. Yeah. Pretty much most people I meet are way smarter than me. So it's not like
we're doing this, right?
It's not a super high hurdle to like overcome,
Right.
So, if you didn't know what you said your work button kicked on, but like what made you say, I want to go work with my parents? And the reason I bring that up is because it is a challenging endeavor. It has its moments, right?
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
I mean, of all the places you could work,
right.
like what made you decide I want to go back home and work beside my mom and my dad?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to be, just kind of put all the cards out there, I kind of had a moment in college where I was just like, man, my parents are pretty great. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people don't have that relationship with their parents, and I was fortunate enough to have it.
Yeah.
I kind of view family as this passing of the baton anyways, and in a lot of ways, my granddad started it and kind of, gave his life to Jesus and started living a certain way, which made him raise his kids a certain way. My parents did the same thing, and I just felt really blessed. I felt really blessed to grow up in the environment that I did, to have the opportunities that I have, and I didn't really want to waste them. So that was kind of my reason.
So do you look at our guys, like Jay's here, Nick's here,
right,
and even some guys that we hired before those guys. I mean, my parents were around when I started working full time, much like Becky and Tim are. And by the way, your read was right. You have great parents. Like you should make sure you keep them paid.
Right.
Make sure you keep the lights on. So
forever
they can
on the
retire
payroll.
someday.
Those two.
If you don't, then I assume there's a lot of people who lined up to kick your ass.
Right.
But which is your job too now, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's where I was going with it. Is like on our end. I mean, my parents were obviously like the old guard, but a lot of the guys that are my friends that I work with every day, I mean, they kind of view my parents as, their parents, right? Like from a work type sense, and I think they've been able to keep that close relationship because they were around. Some of the guys more towards the end, but a lot, most of the guys like when they were still pretty heavily involved. So it is kind of like a unique relationship for you, I would assume, as well.
I always tell people I have no shortage of parents, so Christmas is awesome for me. But no, truthfully, Becky and Tim kind of taken me under their wing and taught me a lot. And I tell jokes all the time. It's like I'm like the adopted son. Mm-hmm. I'm the wild child for the family for sure. Because I have my own parents, of course, but I was raised in a different household. But no, they have taught me so much, and the opportunities here are I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, I mean the way I mean just walking around your guys' facility, I mean you can just see how much like attention to detail is here. Was it always that way? I mean, as far as like when you growing up.
As long as Tim has been here, my dad has been here. It's been like that.
Is your house like that too? Everything
dude.
is.
I moved out and I was just in shock about all the things that weren't magically happening around me.
Really?
Had to pick up real quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just. Oh, I thought it was always like that. Like, no, somebody has to clean that shit.
Yeah.
Up,
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah. I mean, he's brilliant, man. It really is.
Well, I remember when you guys, when your parents came out to our facility, and then they were kind of telling us how you guys had bought this building and had renovated it, and pretty much your dad had like done. He was the GC and did all the work, and then when we pulled in and we were walking around, I was like, damn, like this is nice.
This whole area where we're sitting was like 6 foot tall drywall cubicles with conduit in it.
Yeah.
And the same thing upstairs. Like we had to demo everything. I mean, the place was just like, it looked nothing like this. It was gross.
It's almost like, when you think about it, like you guys are processing obviously a lot of converters back there in the warehouse, but it's almost like too nice to be like a full-on scrapyard. But I mean, you guys do it right. So kudos to.
Thank you. Yeah.
You have they've set the bar high.
Don't
for
I know
you.
it, man?
Do you feel those bricks on your shoulder when you walk around?
I used to. But with them around and the way that they've, I guess the kind of the strategy they had in kind of raising me for this and training me for this.
Yeah. Not
anymore. My dad had me be the custodian for a year, and then I was, on the shears, and then I was sweeping the warehouse, and then it was every single job in the building I had to do for a pretty significant amount of time. And so, now I've been in leadership for about 2 years. It's pretty comfortable.
It gives you an appreciation for like what it takes to do every job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it gives you an appreciation for like what that person's has to battle.
Yeah, the place doesn't run without the talent and the people here. I mean, that's kind of like what you were saying earlier at lunch. Sorry. About it being a collective, right?
Yeah.
It's like you need the people around you, and everyone's got to take pride in what they do, or else it doesn't happen. And
so, like, what is your role? Like, what do you on a daily basis? Like, what do they? Where do you start, and where are you at today?
We talk about it, but Cole is definitely the idea guy. Has a lot of good ideas that are going to push this company forward. But I'm more on the Tim side of it, where let's get the converters in the door, and then let's talk about it. So. That's kind of my day-to-day is figuring out how do we get those converters in the door? How do we grow substantially more than we already are? So managing the sales team, Cole had definitely helped me revolutionize what we built upstairs.
Yeah.
Just keeping my sales team in check and maintaining the standard that's been set by this company years ago.
Yeah.
So what is your role then today, Cole? How does it work?
Yeah, technically I'm the CTO. So I do everything technology-wise, but when you're at a company that's okay with trying new things, that's kind of every department.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's not uncommon for me to spend a day with the sales team or to spend a day out in the warehouse or something, just looking for ways to improve. And also, I joined the executive leadership team about like a year or 2 years ago, and that's been kind of the same thing that my parents do is looking at the whole picture and saying, okay, what do we need to do to get to where we want to go? And that's just day to day.
So I mean, basically, UCC started as. Give me like the history of it.
I got this. For sure.
Give me some background.
Okay.
So
my dad worked for my grandfather at the exhaust repair place.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened in that industry, but essentially my granddad was like, "Hey son, you're fired because I can hire you back if I need you." He's like, if I fire these guys, they've been with him for like 10 years. He's like, well, I can't get them back. They're just going to go somewhere else. So my granddad actually fired my dad. He's like, but don't worry, I got a job lined up for you. Go and deliver or picking up converters for this company. And it's really a crazy story. You'll have to have my dad tell you sometime. It involves being sent to a city with a bunch of cash and then not knowing where to go to pick up some truck and then having to fix the truck on the spot. And it's insane. That company, it changed names like 4 times in 4 months. And they were like, hey, we're shutting down, but can you also sign this non-compete? And my dad was like, dude, you're my fourth boss I've had this month. I'm not signing anything from you. And so he just kept his route and kept those relationships and, you know, in a Ford truck. And that's how we started. And that was about 1992 when he made United Catalyst proper and kept his route. So now we're here.
And so from just a guy with a truck, picking up converters.
Yeah, I think he had a kid on the way as well, which helped get him up in the morning and out there.
Yeah, in the early 90s. I mean, I think people, there was a run on converters where like the value went pretty crazy, like let's say 21, right? Where I mean, it's platinum, palladium, rhodium was as high as it's ever been, right?
Yep.
And people think about converters like, oh, that's $1,000 or $1,500 or $800. And in 1992, that wasn't the case.
No.
Like
small, medium, large, 5, 10, 15. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. And I think sometimes people remember like back in when that was really going on, it wasn't all these grades, all these codes, all these loadings, you know, and it's
gotten incredibly complex.
It has gotten incredibly complex. But where I was going with that really is, I mean, from when your dad started to and at one point did your mom come in?
I think she really always helped him with the books and stuff like that, just kind of you know, here and there. And then really in the mid 2000s, I think she kind of started stepping up a little bit more. And then we took a quick break in 2007, 2008 with the market crash. And then I think a couple years later, 2 years later, we started back up. And then they were both full-time on it.
Because she's the one that I originally met. Like I'd see her at the trade shows.
Well, she's the face, right?
Yeah,
she's you know, she's very personable. You like watching her walk. You know, she's a master at a trade show. She runs around, friends with everybody. And then my dad's always kind of this guy behind the snes, right? Nothing happens without the thumbs.
We always say Tim's like Batman at trade shows, man. You'll just be talking to him, he'll just disappear.
Yeah, it's true.
Go.
No, that's not even a lie. He Batmans people all the time. Yeah.
Because you guys are. I mean, one thing about I've noticed about you guys is you guys have done a really great job on the marketing and the sales side, and like.
Thank you.
I mean, and what do you attribute that to? Because I think I go back because in converters sometimes gets a bad rap, right? Like every converter is stolen.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Like
everything if you say converters, people just think, oh, that the Honda. Accord that had its cat cut, but I mean that's really not the case because you guys are pretty heavily involved, on marketing the positive side of it, but also like on the like the compliance side too. Is that something that you are in the middle of?
I do help a lot with that with Becky on the compliance side of it. We work closely with REMA on some of the things where we brought law enforcement here and we're able to train them on scrapyards and converters too, because I was guilty of it, I'll say it. When I first saw scrapyards in my younger days, I was like, oh man, they're up to some shady stuff.
Yeah.
But whenever we had the chance to bring law enforcement in here and I got to provide my take on it, I think a lot of eyes opened up in the room in the fact that there are a lot of good players out there running scrapyards who are doing the right thing. Yeah. Just like we're a converter company, and sure, you can think we're doing the wrong thing, but we try to do the right thing every day. And that's the goal.
I feel like that's kind of like an advantage that you guys have with having you in the middle is you've been able to see like both sides of the coin, right? You can like speak to the law enforcement side and say, hey, this is what you see, but actually this is what's really going on behind the scenes. Here's probably like what a good player looks like, and here's what someone who's probably riding the lightning looks like, you know. And I feel like that's probably like a big advantage for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of our brand too. You asked about, talking about United Catalyst. Our brand is our most important thing to us. Yeah. A lot. Because we believe in certain values and goals, and one of our goals is to educate. Yeah. To educate people on catalytic converters and on scrapyards. So, yeah.
Because I mean, you guys are buying from other recycling companies, you're buying from auto salvages.
Mostly auto salvage, yeah.
It's only reputation feels like it's probably a pretty big, because there's a lot of mistrust. With converter companies, and I think because it's I would say it's because the scrap metal recycling trade has been around for 100 years and some change, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the converter trade, really, I mean, like you said, even in '92, you're like small, medium, large,
Yeah.
5, 10s, and 15s.
It's
right?
a young industry.
It's a young industry, which means there's a lot of room for,
Yeah.
growth. But there's also a lot of room for people just trying to understand, like the nuances.
Yeah.
Nuances of it.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, if you would have asked for a meeting with us 15 years ago, we probably wouldn't have let you in the door because you do converters, and that's how it was, right? It's
Exactly.
like you're trying to eat my lunch, I'm trying to eat your lunch, and there's absolutely nothing else to it.
Yeah.
But every market and every industry grows and matures, and that's kind of what I like about being in a young market is that you kind of get to watch other markets, see how they develop, and then almost know what's next. So
tell me about the markets like in 2020, 21, going into that. Like,
yeah.
what did that look like around here for you guys? I mean, we're talking like was it 21? I mean,
I wasn't here, but I've seen the numbers.
yeah.
Yeah. I can speak
And
to it a
not
little
to
bit.
like not to the profitability or anything.
Right,
just
right,
like
right.
how
It's a
how
different
has
time.
it changed like to today? How was it before? Like
Yeah.
what are the differences you see? Positive, negative, like yeah, I'm not here to, go through the math
Right,
with you.
right. I think so I kind of started leadership here during the absolute tanking off of that high, right?
Yeah.
So I just, the team we have now is, stronger, faster, smarter. We're lean. We're motivated every day.
Mm-hmm.
The sales team especially, they claw for everything they get, and they're good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But those days were different. It was like you pretty much came in, smiles on your faces. If the phone rang, you picked it up. Sure, we can take your converters,
Yeah.
And it was like you had to try not to get converters.
Yeah.
And then, essentially, to put it in one sentence, the product went down to a third of what it was, and the supply went down to a third of what it was, all at the same time.
Yeah. It's like the double-edged sword, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we can ramp up the sales side. We got skinnier margins, so we just need more volume. But when you lose volume and you lose margin at the same time, that creates for like a tough business environment.
Yeah. And ultimately though, I'm pretty thankful for it because now coming out of that, we've got a tough team.
Yeah.
It forged a lot of young professionals into full-blown professionals.
How many people are on your team now that went through that with you guys?
From the high to the low?
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
I would, 2. But we have hired
On sales.
Yeah.
On the sales side.
Sales
Yeah,
side, yeah.
on the sales side. But we've hired since then, and now they're in this low, right?
Yeah.
And it's teaching them that they have to claw and fight for everything.
Yep.
So with that, it's going to make them substantially better when there's another high because they've worked so hard in the low.
Yeah. And also, the software's helped out a ton there too. Luckily we kind of timed up our release with, here's kind of my take on it, because the converter market technically, even when it tanked, right, it was still historically high.
Correct.
If you look at the 90s and the early 2000s, like these are still kind of have been historically good markets.
Yep.
What it really was is that spike kind of just set expectations at a certain point. And when it went back down to what I would consider above average, it felt lower than it was. And so something that the software did for us was kind of, I don't think the problem was the pricing. I think the problem was the excitement about converters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It went from something that, oh my gosh, I could hold on to these. I could, send my kid to college with one, shipment of 10 boxes.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. But now we're at a point where it's back to being a normal commodity. But I think the software and some of those technical advances that we can make, because as a converter company, we care about converters, obviously.
Absolutely.
And we can kind of help the industry with their converters. So I think some of that excitement can be generated, but that's ultimately what caused the supply to
We
shrink
talk
up.
about it a lot, even on any commodity, whether it's scrap steel or copper or whatever. I mean, when you have $5 copper and
Right.
it goes to $3.50,
Yeah.
like $3.50 historically, copper is not bad. $4 copper, what I saw it today's like $4.34 or something like that. like that's pretty damn good, right? But when it's 5 and it goes to 350, people are like, oh, you know, and you're like, no, it really, like that's pretty good, but you just, and it takes a while to work through it.
Right.
I feel like on the ferrous side, it's even harder. I mean, to claw that back, because then people can just sit on it. It's not as big of a, you know, as big of a mover, because they're like, yeah, I'll just put it out in the field for 2 years. So then it takes you 2, 3, 5 years for the next cycle, so you can actually get that material to come back in the door, right?
I've always told my sales team, there's one good word to describe it. It's just being spoiled. You're spoiled by the market.
Absolutely.
And I've said it to business owners before. I'm like, you know, you're just spoiled.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but you know, that's Coleman.
You're just spoiled by the fact that the prices are that good. But historically, we're still looking at good markets. Why sit on something that you're going to lose money on?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to dollar cost averaging, you're going to come out of the positive if you sell it as a commodity, because that's what it is.
Yeah. In and out.
So what was like some of the best, like, what lessons was learned? I mean, in that high to low and making the comeback. Because the reason I asked that is because, you know, in 08, when the market, people always ask me like how long I've been married, and I always know I can always reference back to the year I got married, because I got married in the best and the worst scrap market ever, right? Like we went from where we had to close our yard down. We physically closed the gates, and we said we cannot take any more scrap for a week because our piles are so big. Somebody's gonna get fucking hurt.
Right.
There's buses stacked 5 high, shit 8-way sideways. And we're like, we have to close the doors. Yeah. Because it's an accident waiting to happen, and we just have to process the amount of stuff that's come in the door. Yeah. And that would be like, say, in June of 08, I got married in July, and it wasn't from like 2 months later that we couldn't even sell the shit. Like, there was no homes for it. Right. I'm like, well, that went quick, you know. Like we went from the penthouse to the doghouse like in a month, and so it's easy for me to remember that. But and it was in that month, like the next month, we kind of dug. We got lucky. We were able to move a lot of our inventory. A lot of people got pinched. We weren't one of them, but eventually it took. I mean, we were for a year that market was crap, and then like probably 6 months after that, we eventually had to lay people off because we didn't have any scrap. There was nothing coming in the door, nothing to process, nothing to cut. So it was the first and only time I ever had to lay people off, and I always said like I will put us in a position that I don't have to fight that battle again, right? Because that's a hard. So we basically started diversifying our business. We started other lines of business and really pushing on other things. But that was like one of the big lessons that I took away from that. So what kind of lessons did you guys take away from 21?
I think
22.
I think you don't even know who you are until you go through something like that.
Yeah.
I think that some of the lessons I took away is that you can always take more shit. You have so much more endurance than you think you do at any given moment. Especially that first 6 months to a year, it just feels like you're like, oh, okay, this is as much as I can take. No, now this is as much as I can take, right? Yeah. And then you get to the point where you're just like, okay, I clearly can keep taking it. Yeah. So what are we going to do about it? And then so you just kind of, dig your heels in and get after it. And that, again, kind of like what you said, you never want to see yourself in a situation like that again. So we got to work. And so, like I said, a year and a half later, we are probably, the best version of our company we've had so far, but we're just getting started.
I remember when I first started, there was a lot to learn. Not like I was well versed in catalytic converters. I came from being a cop. So there was a lot to learn, but there wasn't a lot of time to learn it. So we really hit the ground running, Cole and I, and we were flying all over the place. We were flying places. We were going to yard visits. I was trying to learn, trying to catch up on how to talk to yard owners. And, eventually it caught on, and we started getting yeses. We're going to ship to you. We're going to ship to you. And I was like, great. Can't wait to get these converters, and I cannot wait to see Tim and Becky happy. And I remember I made a promise to Cole when I first started. It was that I want to stack so many converters in that warehouse, that giant warehouse that you just saw, that it's going to be a problem. Like, I want to create a problem. And that's what I thought was going to happen. until we get back and they're like, yeah, I didn't say that. I'm not shipping you. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So that was definitely my low. My high was about 6 months in. I remember I was trying to close my key account. And we did everything that we could possibly do to close this account. And then I remember the day that they said, okay, let's do it. And we got those first 20 boxes in.
Yeah.
And there was nothing you could have told me I did wrong, because I was the happiest guy in the world. And that was my high, seeing your work finally come through. And that's what I preach to my sales team now is, the work is going to come through. You're not always going to have that day where you're a winner.
Yeah.
But you will have those moments you win, and that's what you need to have to keep pushing you forward.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you go through those like tough times, in those markets, I remember during COVID, we had just started. I had got a bid on a big windmill demolition project in just outside, probably a couple hours outside of Denver, an hour and a half outside of Denver, Colorado. And he just got started, and then, because I remember going down, getting everything kind of dialed in. We went to a Denver Nuggets game. I had taken a guy that was doing some of our outside stuff, Kenny Bull and Sal, who still works with us. Kenny is retired, but we went to the last Denver Nuggets basketball game before they stopped the season for COVID. Oh, yeah. We didn't know at the time. We're like, oh, we're in town. We're start this. And we had just got started, and we were like a couple weeks in, and then all of a sudden, it just started getting real sketchy as far as like what you could do, how you could ship, and it was a dogfight. And I remember coming home and I'm not a weekday drinker, like I just like more of a weekend. Like it was a long week. I have a cocktail with my wife. I remember coming home on like a Tuesday. And I just poured like the biggest glass of whiskey. And my wife's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I've never worked so hard to fucking lose money in my life. Like, I'm working like a dog, and I'm just getting kicked every single day. I've never worked that hard to just lose and lose.
Right.
And it was a combination of that. And we eventually, like, that deal we got it like ironed out, but it was like them kicking us off the site. So we had to transfer all the trucks, and then, okay, now you can start again. And then one of the guys on the site got electrocuted, which wasn't our fault. Like, it was the electrical companies, but then we had to pull everything off the site. And I was like, can we just buy a break here, And it was just, and I felt like that was kind of that, that 08 feeling. Mm-hmm. But because I had went through it in 08, I knew, like, I'm like, okay, like, it's going to be fine. Like, but we just got to keep battling. Yeah. And so I knew going through COVID, and when that all started kicking off, and then all of a sudden the markets ramped and everything got really good. But I knew if I could just keep battling, that it would eventually work itself out, and we'd be able to laugh at it, But at the time, like, it was not a laughing matter. Like, it sucked.
Yeah,
it's
true.
That's the good thing about going through those crap markets, right? And like a real quick story, in 04, I started full time in 04, and if you know the Ferris market, from like 04 to 08 was like a steady climb, and the markets got better and they got better, and then in 08 is when China was was ripping, and the pricing was going crazy. And I remember looking at my dad, and I was like, I don't know why you complain so much. Like, this market is not that fucking hard to make money in the scrap business. He's like, he just laughed at me like, wait. Yeah. And it wasn't that much longer. I was like, this business isn't that hard. And then for a year and a half, I just got my nuts kicked every single day. And I think he almost liked it in a way.
Yeah, I told you so.
It was painful.
Yeah, you had it coming,
like,
though. You did have it coming.
Like, it's coming, But it helped me. It helped me realize, like, those all getting kicked every single day, and then that's where you're like, golly. Yeah. But that's those markets that you guys talk about. That that's what the good thing is. It like forges your team together.
Absolutely.
There's it puts you right in the fire, and everybody, you're just battling like literally to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Like that's people say, how's things going? I said, just keeping the lights on. Like some days we are literally just trying to keep the lights on,
Right.
And if you've been through it,
I mean, I have 6 salespeople sitting up there, and you saw the open floor concept. We're all sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
That's because I want them to communicate. I want them to get it off their chest. If you sat in your office and you made those 300 plus calls a week, sitting there and you get told no a bunch of times, or I'm going to ship to you, and then they don't ship to you because you find out 2 months later, that would really kick you in the nuts a lot.
Yeah.
It would beat you down. But the one thing we preach up there is, let's get it off our chest, let's talk about it, and lean on one another so we can be stronger.
Because if the guy next to you is getting kicked too, you're like, well, how does that?
You can laugh about it
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as painful as if the guy next to you is getting kicked. Do you ever listen to that, being on the sales side, do you ever listen to that Alex Hormozy?
I have not.
Dude,
I have.
He's the best.
He is really good.
He talks about sales and like cold calls and like how to work. I mean, that really was his jam. I mean, and he built, a hell of a business. Now he has acquisition.com.
That was that 3-hour video I sent you, and I was like, watch this. It was like 1 a.m. I texted you.
He talks about like the power of just making calls and how that can, obviously you have to figure out how to make them correctly, but he talks about that. It's just putting in the reps. He's like, if you want to be successful,
Absolutely.
it's reps and reps and reps, and especially on the sales side, it's really what it is. So when I saw your guys' board up there, and it kind of had calls and leads and whatever else, I was like, oh, you guys, I think you guys got some things dialed in. So who brought that to the table?
I think it was a mutual idea because I always wanted some way to track it. I wanted to kind of gamify it a little bit because it's monotonous. You're sitting there making calls all day. Let's try to make it a little more entertaining for the team. And then Cole, he's the idea guy, so I come up with kind of a semi-idea. He will make it come true.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it's really, for me, looking at how it's even, more than just the sales team. It's like how we want to run the whole company. It's got to be data driven. Yeah. Gone are the days of, well, my gut's telling me that this guy's not working. Well, did you go back there and watch him work or not? We have to know that we know. And so all across the whole company, we've built, systems to make sure that we can see what's going on. We can use that information to make better decisions. And that's kind of where the sales stuff comes from, is just, because we can watch the numbers now. It's like when these guys started and we started training them, they were, getting no's all day long, and they were just, when is this going to happen for me? And man, the average lot time from the first time I call them to the time that it comes in is 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
But now it's like they're starting to get yeses. They're starting to get better. And it's like you said, there's no replacement for reps.
This sales team idea is, we put more into the sales team recently than we have anything, because again, the goal is to get product in, and the sales team is how you do that. And the one thing I always told them is the only way you're really going to learn how to do this is just by doing it. So whatever fear you have of getting on the phone, you're going to mess up, that's fine. Just learn how to do it and keep doing it, and you're only going to get better.
Absolutely.
If you care.
Yeah. I think that Hormozy, you should really dive into that guy.
Yeah.
He's got it pretty dialed. I think he'd be a great mentor, someone to learn stuff, because it kind of fits in with how you guys are doing things, and I think he'd be a good listen. I think my generation, I'm 43. God damn, I'm gonna be 44 here in a couple months. We're the internet generation, right? We kind of we came along when the internet came along, and you guys are probably more of the AI, I'm guessing, generation.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT a good bit.
What's that?
I use ChatGPT a good bit.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's probably, that's going to be your sweet spot. So how is that going to change the converter game?
Oh, man.
Does it do anything? Does it have its role? What is
you just open
the
up
role?
Well, he did and he didn't.
What's that?
I said you did and you didn't. So yes, it's going to change the converter industry a lot. The specific ways in which it's going to change this converter company, I can't get into, but
just
we're
how
already,
does it change the game for
my gosh.
the industry?
Well, so essentially the work that one administrative person could do in a day, they can do 5 times the amount with AI.
Yeah.
And that's, everything from Microsoft Copilot agents to ChatGPT. A lot of the things that you couldn't track in the past, you can track now. And really, the goal, the one piece of advice that I would give out now, because AI is getting more accessible every day, And right now, a lot of recycling companies maybe don't have a developer on staff. Maybe don't have, they've got their son who just so happens to be interested in that, kicking the can around here. So I would just say start tracking your data, at least in an Excel sheet, keeping copies historically. And then, the day is coming pretty soon where you can just hire someone to AI will be able to build websites, build applications, take all that data, give you insights you didn't know you needed. One of the best case studies of this was Shell Oil, I think. They had been keeping these insane metrics on the lifetime of their underwater rigs. And all the different pressures and gauges and thicknesses of the metal, and they kept it like since the 40s on paper. And for somehow this company kept all these records intact, and then they put it into what's called a data lake recently and ran it all. And now they don't even know how, but the AI completely understands based on all the variables. It can predict when the pipes are going to break before any human being could. So they don't have any more oil spills. It's right every time. And the variables are constantly changing, and it still somehow figured it out. And that's just the kind of world we're about to move into.
Yeah, anybody that's got access to the data has a chance to win.
Can you wield it?
If you can figure out how does that work within your ecosystem, whatever it is. I mean, I think if you have the data, you have a lot better chance to win, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're basing everything off of fact.
Yeah.
Right?
So what about? I mean, I listened to. You were listening to All In podcast. I listen, and it's a more of a financial podcast, but they talk about they kind of predict what's going to happen in 2025, what sectors are worth betting on, and they talk about the few of them are really high on robotics. I mean, do you guys deploy any sort of robotics throughout, or because the reason I bring that up is because we talk about it in. On the scrap side, is there any way that you can replace something that's being repetitively done or whatever? Because we recently were exploring. There's a machine that has a tire, and it's from Regom. Shout out to Arthur at Regom, but and it comes across down a conveyor line, and then it basically takes pictures of the sidewall and the tread depth, and it basically reads the manufacturer, the tread depth, whether that tire is a tire that could be considered grade or resold as a resale tire, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes through, and so it takes that human sitting there grading that out.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a few of them in Europe, but there's nothing here in the United States yet. I think they're still trying to prove it out. But and I was thinking about that. Is there anything in the scrap business, converter business yet that kind of has that capability that is intriguing or interesting? Because you guys, I
can speak to this a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, the thing about tires that's nice is that it's the same every time with a couple defects here and there. Tires are pretty standard.
Yeah.
And that's what you need for automation. You need repeatability over and over, and that's why manufacturing is such a good place for robotics.
Yeah.
Because it's the same widget hundreds of thousands of times a day. A robot's great at that. What it's not great at is what we do.
Yeah.
Because sheet metal can come in bent here, bent there, this shape, this weight, it's rusted here. All of that kind of stuff throws off robotics and AI, which makes it a challenge. But that's not to say that it can't happen. So my favorite example so far, shout out to these guys, is AMP Robotics. They work in waste management, and they essentially made an AI to sort through trash.
Like a picker, right?
Yeah, it's a pneumatic picker, and it uses air pressure and suction to quickly sort out all the trash. But I mean, they're getting stats out of landfill runs of we had 300 Starbucks brand coffee cups, and they're all crushed and brown, and it's pretty incredible. So I think with enough training, we can definitely get there as an industry. We just might be towards the back of the pack there because it's a little more difficult.
It is.
But difficult's never stopped us before. Well,
pretty niche too.
Yeah.
So, having come from a family business, I know the difficulties in it. I also know the upside, and it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about your some of the best lessons, or you think about something your takeaway from working here with your parents every day, like what's something that you've either learned or something you appreciate, or just something like when you think about it, I mean, how do you think about it?
Well, I think about it as there's a proverb about honoring your parents and what that does to wisdom. I can't quote it word for word, but it's essentially, it's the thought that, a fool learns from experience and a wise person learns from the experiences of others. And so, I was lucky enough to have my parents share a lot with me, which I felt like put me way ahead of the curve if I just, take those principles, trust them, stick to them, and then innovate and change when the, and adapt to the situations that come my way. But a lot of the stuff, I feel like it's a huge advantage. That's not to say Berube's aren't hard-headed. We are all, you should have seen us go to Disney World. My girlfriend was ready to run. We have all chiefs and no Indians.
What she could be getting herself into for the rest of her life.
Yeah, it's all.
I've been in those meetings.
Yeah, we've got all chefs and no cooks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that can be challenging at times because you end up half your conversations end with "we're saying the same thing,"
Yeah.
But at least we're working on the problem, and we are saying the same thing, and so we're getting a little bit better at that every day. But yeah, I love working with my family. It's something that, like, at times when I was younger, I didn't think it was a good idea. But the older I get, the more I like it.
What do you think about?
What do you think about my family?
Like, what do you think about? What do you think about your second family?
You're gonna get me in trouble.
What do you think about your bosses, Coleman?
I went to Universal with them. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, you did? I forgot about that.
A lot of good times. But no. I grew up in a Southern family. They're from the North, but I always tell people I think I'm from the North because I just get along with people better from the North.
It's because you're rude. It's because you're.
You
feel right at home here.
No, my family's originally from New Jersey, so I do operate well with the people in the North. But no, I've learned a lot, about being closer to God and things like that from the Berube family, and I think that's kind of what I value the most. Not saying I didn't grow up in a religious household. I did, but it was kind of at your own pace.
Yeah.
But there's things that I've learned at this company, and I think it's Tim and Becky's goal to teach us as their.
Yeah, it's their ministry.
Yeah,
that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And that. That's. I didn't know you thought that.
You just have a good collective. You have a good atmosphere. Like when you walk around here, you can just tell like people care. Right?
Yeah.
You care about the facility. They care about what they do. You guys take a lot of pride. You guys have like a nicer gym than what I work out in at the gym, like here. Like you guys got it. You can just tell there's a lot of foresight. There's a lot of thought that goes into, what you do and how you care about your people. And I think that's like a prerequisite to success.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And that's what's going to get you to the next step is because then it allows you to recruit, and people see what you got and they want to be a part of it, and you want them to be a part of it. The knife cuts both ways. It's like you need them, and sometimes they need you. Like you're trying to get people into in that can help you get to the next level.
Yeah.
I know when I started, there's no fucking way or freaking or whatever.
You're fine.
No way. All this church talk. I'm like, I probably should.
No, you're good. You're good.
Sorry, Becky.
She's not here.
But there's no way I'd be even remotely close to where I am if I wasn't able to recruit people like Nick and Jay sitting here today to come in and like help me build it.
Yeah,
right?
and how did you get them to buy in, right?
Yeah, you care about them.
Right.
You're like, you want them to be successful. You want to find something that they're interested in doing.
Yeah.
Neither of them, started or came. I saw something the other day. You're either born in or you're sworn in.
Right.
So there are two options. Like
right.
You want to be in the business, right?
Yep.
Either you showed up or we sworn you in, and you're gonna have to get jumped out.
Yeah.
That's
this is like we've got like a really strong culture here, and like I said, my parents view this as their life's work, not just as a business, as the people that they interact with on a daily basis. And also, this kind of will go into kind of how similar to your story, where you started hiring your friends and they swore in, right?
Yeah.
The goal of our company has always been to help the people that work with us, and that goes for our customers, our recyclers, and our employees. And my dad's been quoted more than a few times saying, I want every car in the parking lot to be their dream car.
Yeah.
I want families to be comfortable. If we ever sell this thing, we're all going to benefit from it. It's never just been the Berube family.
Yeah.
It's always been the added family too.
And people see that. Like, I truly believe, like, people read through that and they can see, like, if you want them to be successful.
Yeah,
'Cause
we're
you're gonna give them
dead serious about it.
a latitude that most companies won't, and say, go and let's go make it happen, right? They give you the bandwidth to get it done.
You brought up hiring too. The one thing that whenever we started expanding our sales team and hiring other people too, that Cole and I wanted to do, especially when we're hiring people, was we wanted to stay away from because their resume looked good.
Yeah.
I could care less about that.
Yeah. That's the biggest shift we've ever had in HR.
I want to know you as a person. I want to know what you're going to bring to the table every day. Two of my salespeople, three of them. One of them's a comedian. He was a stand-up comedian. One was a basketball player.
We were talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one is a local politician.
Uh-huh.
But tell me where the sales experience is into that.
Right.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton there, but they had the tangibles to come in here every day and work hard, and they're proving it every day.
Yeah. We used to literally, it's such a different company. You asked what it was like back in 2020, 2021.
Uh-huh.
Every single employee had to take this like Wonderlic test that they do in the draft. There was like a 20-page exam. We're calling their old jobs, their old schools, their old college roommate. Everything's very like proper and red tape. We kind of created a little mini bureaucracy and kind of made us slow and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's like whenever we did that, we got the kind of people that said, oh, well, that's not my job.
Yeah.
And me and my parents would just look at each other and be like, what do you mean it's not your job? We're all trying to make this company work.
Yeah.
And, at some point, I just looked at my parents and I was like, you guys got to throw this out.
Yeah.
Let's hire based off of what you think about this person. And, every single person we've hired, they have a chip on their shoulder. They've got something to prove, and they're happy to be here. And it's kind of created a really strong bond. And, those are the people that run through brick walls for you, and you do the same for them. And if they understand that, right? I forget who's that basketball coach that said that thing. It's like they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Pat Summitt.
Yeah, Pat Summitt, legend. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
So they know that we care about them, and vice versa. And
well, I think you're like in the scrap business, like recycling business, whatever you want to call it. Like we were already kind of an underdog industry. We had been for a long time, and so I always attributed that to like, well, if we're say an underdog industry, or maybe you're kind of looked down upon, like then I'm going to hire the underdog people that have something to prove, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really how you build your business. And if you get too corporate, or you get to that level where people start like, well, you need to have a college degree, or you need to have XYZ amount of years experience, or you need to have that, then you're not hiring underdogs.
Right.
You really aren't. And
Yeah.
I think that, I look back and, I remember when I was my senior year of high school, I was in the summer before my senior year, I was outside and I was running a cutting torch, and I was cutting I-beam and rail iron. And I really never minded, even in the summer in the heat of Idaho, like I didn't really mind running a cutting torch because it was just kind of on my own program, and I could actually see at the end of the day, I could be like, I cut 50 ton or 20 ton or whatever it was, right? And you can see the progress. I feel like it's kind of like building a house. Like you see some walls come up, and you're like, like making
it's starting to look like
right?
a room. Yeah.
Versus some jobs you just don't get to see it. But running a cutting torch every day, like you're sweating your ass off and it's hot, but you get to kind of see the progress that you made. But I was like, man, I'm watching everybody go in the office, and it's like air conditioning in there, and I'm like, and I went to ask my dad, and this is going into my senior year of high school, and I was playing football, and so I was cutting in between breaks, and I was like, how do I get in the office? Like, what do I got to do to get an office job? He goes, why don't you go to college?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you didn't go to college, and you're in the office. And he's like, exactly. Like, why don't you try? He goes, nobody in our families ever went. Like, no moms, no dads, no aunts, no uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters. Like, nobody's ever went to college. He goes, why don't you try it? And I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, so I finished my senior year. I ended up playing football and going to college and playing football. So that's kind of helped motivated me to go. But and the other motivation is like, I don't know that I just want to like run a cut torch for the next whatever amount of years, you know? And so I was like, all right.
Do you have a similar story?
I had that moment. I mean, I was doing irrigation for a landscaping company.
Yeah.
I was like, I was digging trenches, and I was like, this sucks.
No, dude, carbon copy. I was working on the Michelin plant in Woodruff. I was grouting miles of like that building curved with the earth, man, and they had me under there with the 2x4 grouting under. We were putting up the concrete panels for the walls, and that put me back on the college track like that.
But the reason I bring that up is like you guys are lucky. You guys have two cheerleaders, right? Like you have two people that want to see you like get ahead of them. And not everybody has that as parents or as like mentors. Like some people want to kind of keep you here so they can stay here, right? But you guys have a similar thing in Becky and Tim that they want to see you get ahead.
Right.
They want to see you surpass what they built.
Yeah.
And I think you guys got a good thing going. And I can see it because I've lived it. Yeah. And I witnessed it as I walk around. You remind me of our situation not that long ago. You guys have a good young crew that's trying to push. So last question, like, what does the future hold? Like, what does the future hold for UCC?
For United Catalyst?
For you guys? Like, what's the next generation? Like, what's the fuck around and find out what's going to happen?
I think, you go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think that by the time we're done here, we will have given the converter industry a much better reputation. It'll be a lot simpler, a lot easier. There'll be a higher level of visibility, convenience, and kind of just, we understand that converters are not usually people's main business. If you're an auto recycler, you're running a parts business or you're running a scrap business, right? You shouldn't have to be, terrified that you're getting, the wool pulled over your eyes all the time on your converters. So we're going to get rid of all that worry. And we're going to do it with pretty ingenious systems that kind of blend our physical processing capabilities and really smooth, easy to use technology. Make no mistake about it. Me and Coleman are here to end up with majority market share. That's we're not in this just to kind of play around. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna be here for a very, very long time, working at a very hard pace.
That's like your best. I always say that was like my best sales pitch to people is like you're talking to the guy like that can make the decision, and I'm not going anywhere, and I care too much about my reputation to soil it over a bad deal.
Absolutely.
Like that was always my pitch to any customer. It was like, I ain't gonna screw you because I want to live in this town and I want to be around for a long time.
Yeah, you don't get to be in business for 30 years with a,
I'm gonna do everything I can to take care of you.
Right.
I think the truth of it is I know the level of service this company provides to its customers because I watch it happen. I watch what happens to to our customers when they went other places. And they always end up right back here because I know what we provide.
Yeah.
The real goal of this company is to become the main name, the main place where converters want to go to, because we provide such a high level of service and such a better feeling when people ship to us. I mean, truthfully, just growing as a company and creating that UCC family with our customers and partners or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I also want to see the industry's technology catch up with the rest of the world a little bit. I mean, there's definitely the technology that's a staple right now is a staple for a reason. It works.
Yeah.
Some owners, I can shout out to Sean Duty right here. He's one of the guys that understands that you have to keep evolving. I mean, Scrap Rate's done such a good job. But there's also some young guns there too that are doing a great job in the market. Rematter, for example. But the market has to evolve. There has to be, and recyclers deserve better technology all around, right? And so, if we do diversify, I think it would be there. I think that we would help out where we can, fill gaps for recyclers. Because at the end of the day, people don't love us because we're a converter company. They love us because we're trying to do everything we can to help them.
Gotcha.
From where we're at.
Yep.
And that technology is a great avenue. We've got incredible developers here. We make really high level software. So we're probably in the years to come going to continue to be helpful in other ways.
Last question, and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
So this is the Generational Courage podcast, and I always say like what enabled me to be where I'm at today is that from a courage standpoint is that my parents gave me the ability to fail. Right? Mm-hmm. They said, yeah, you're gonna, here's the keys to the car. We know you're probably gonna wreck it or knock a mirror off.
Absolutely.
Or whatever, right? So that's what enabled me to be where I am. So when you think about that, like in your situation, like how did they give you the courage to do what you're doing today and go out and what?
Yeah, I've definitely got a good one for this. So, again, you only really believe in someone if you can put your money where your mouth is, right? Yep. And my parents, probably before I should have, were like, okay, you say you want to build the software, here you go. We're going to direct funding for you to build the software. And a lot of that, at first, that was definitely a high tuition cost, mm-hmm. right? I'll never forget. So, we created the Unite ecosystem. It's this gorgeous VIN to converter database. You put in a VIN number for the first time, we can tell you what the cats are before you even buy the car and how much they're worth. The first version of that app that I came out with was like 4 years ago, and it was on iOS only. And I went to 20 different recyclers and showed them. And they were like, you do realize, like, I'm not out in the yard. I have an office with a desk. Like, I'm not still, Joe Blow down here ripping doors off. Like, I'm 50 years old. I have 8 locations. What do you think I'm going to do with this? And I just got ripped a new one by even like people I consider friends now. Uh-huh. They were just like, oh my gosh, like I just left that day, or like I think I'd lined up like Teams calls and stuff. And after that week, I was like, oh my gosh, I just wasted a year of my life building this stupid thing. Uh-huh. And my parents just looked at me and said, okay, that's not what they want. Start over.
Yeah.
And they didn't miss a beat. I mean, they didn't beat me up over it. They should have probably. It was an expensive mistake.
Yeah, or sent you a bill.
But yeah, I mean, we came back out with the finished product this past April, and it went very differently. So, I have to commend them. I mean, really, the guts it takes to take a chance on a 21-year-old who has no idea what he's doing. He didn't go to college for it, and just let him try. Definitely was impressive on their part.
That's awesome. I love it. Coleman.
Yeah.
I totally fucked it up at the very beginning.
It's okay.
I called you Colson. Because yours
right.
is Colson.
People usually call me Neil, and I'm like, no.
But nope. Coleman, I was thinking about that. I was like, God damn it, I screwed up. But I didn't the second time. Thank you guys. Yeah. Appreciate it. You guys got a good thing. I look forward to the future and seeing what you guys build, because I know it's going to be something. So
awesome.
Make it happen.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.